Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode of Wellness Warriors. I'm Dr. Veronique Desognier, better known as Dr. V, your hostess with the mostest. And today is a very, very special day for me. I have an amazing guest who has also become a friend. Her name is Olivia Newton-John. I'm sure many of you already know of her and about her. I can list a long list of things of all her accomplishments and everything that she's done. It would take 30 minutes to go through all of that. But, you know, we know that Olivia is very famous for her music, her acting career, all her contributions to humanity with all the work that she's done. The Olivia Newton-John Cancer Center in Australia, which we'll talk about shortly. But first and foremost, she's a wonderful, loving, warm-hearted human being that I've had the privilege of knowing. And she has so much heart to share and heart to give about her personal healing journey. And I want to welcome you, Olivia. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with our community and our audience.
I'm really delighted to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's start from the beginning. Well, first of all, I do want to encourage everybody to get your book. It's such a wonderful book. You know, I've listened to it. It's because you recorded the Audible yourself, so it's lovely to hear it in your voice. And your story, your personal story, is so inspiring, and there's humor in it. There's, you know, heart-wrenching moments in it. It really shows you as a real live human being, you know, not just the person we see on screen. So definitely get her book. It's such an encouraging story for all of us women. So in chapter 12, you talk about way back in 1992 when you were first diagnosed. And, you know, you had some initial signs. You felt like you were very fatigued. You felt like your blood felt like water and that someone had drained all the energy. And you went for some tests, and the initial tests looked fine, but you pressed on. And so tell me why you did that, why you insisted on getting more testing.
It didn't feel right, and I learned to trust my body. And even though I had a mammogram, it didn't show anything. I went back to a surgeon, and he sent me for a biopsy. A needle biopsy, which was negative, but I just didn't feel right, and it really hurt when he did that, and I had heard there's not supposed to hurt, so it was kind of strange. So they did a surgical biopsy and found it, and I actually was in Australia with my father, who was dying of liver cancer at the time. So it was all like everything happened at once, as it seems to happen in life very often. But I'm glad I listened to myself, and they did find it, and then I had to decide on what I was going to do.
Okay. And you had a friend named Jim, a Buddhist friend, and he said, "Congratulations, now you will grow." And, you know, when we hear that initially, when we're first diagnosed, we don't really anticipate or think about or associate a breast cancer diagnosis with, yay, now I'm going to grow. So tell me how that resonated with you and what you've learned since about that.
Well, it was really interesting because when he said it, it stuck with me my whole life. So therefore, it must have had a huge impact when he said that, because I guess on a baseline, I understood what he was saying, but it was hard to put it together when you were going through that situation. But it's absolutely true, and he's absolutely correct that life's challenges do make you grow, and they do force you to look at things and decide what you want for yourself in your life and put things in perspective. And so he's still one of my dearest friends, and I'm happy to quote him on that, because it is absolutely true that life helps you grow. And people, it might be strange to say that getting breast cancer was a gift to me. I hope you can hear me. I'm getting a sign we're unstable. Oh, we're back. And it forced me into a lot of growth, and even talk, especially 25, 26 years ago, it wasn't as open as it is now. Thanks to you and people like you, women are more open and talking about it, which is very healthy. But it wasn't the case then. And I was kind of forced into talking about it. because the press had got hold of the fact that I'd been for some tests or something. So it was a huge part of my life and has remained that way.
That's wonderful. And yes, it is difficult to think of the cancer diagnosis as a blessing or as a gift, but as we move on and we grow and we evolve, we really do see, in hindsight, how it is and it can be. Now, obviously, you've been a very busy woman most of your life. And like most busy women, professional women like myself and others that are listening, sometimes it's hard to balance our life. And I know you mentioned in your book, especially at one time when your father was ill and you were getting the diagnosis, you said, the show must go on. And so many of us have that attitude, I've got this, but I've got to press forward with my responsibilities. So why is it so important for women to understand that they need to put themselves first and foremost when they're going through a healing journey?
I think it's extremely important. It took me a long time. I think I'm still learning it because I think instinctively as women, you want to take care of everyone. It's in our DNA. It's like the mothering, protective thing is part of who we are. So I think it's very difficult for women to go, no, I've got to be first here and you've got to help me. It took me a long time to even get to that point. But I think it's really important because you need to focus your energy on your healing. And we'll always be mothers and we'll always be nurturers and protectors and we'll do that anyway. But you need to also, maybe the way to say it is, you also need to take care of you. And I always say to women, take that time in the day where you might be talking to someone on the phone about what you're going through and use that for you, and have a sister or a husband or a friend do the calls and talk about it. You don't want to talk about it all day. It's not healthy. You want to do something healing for yourself. Meditate, take a walk, meet a friend, whatever it is, but do something that makes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so important. And as a matter of fact, for me, it took me my second healing journey to really understand that. The first one wasn't enough, but then, the second time I think that was my biggest takeaway, to learn to set boundaries, learn to say no. When I feel myself getting stressed, it's like, time out, everybody. It's time to, take a break and put everything into perspective. Now, you also mentioned in your book how East meets West. And I really appreciate that term because, so many times women, especially if they're doing natural medicine, they feel like they just have to stay down one road. But you had a very balanced approach about your healing journeys, even back in 1992. So tell us about that, what your views are on that.
Well, I was very nervous, when I got my actual diagnosis and they suggested, surgery to remove the lump and then chemotherapy. I was all right with the surgery, a little frightened, of course, but the chemotherapy just terrified me. And I really didn't want to do it. I knew, the toll it would take on my body. And people were driving up to my gate and going, don't do it, and these alternatives. And it was a crazy time because that was kind of a time my career was quite popular. And but one of my friends said to me, why would you take a chance and not do it? And I think that kind of do that and just make sure. And I know a lot more now than I knew then, but I'm kind of glad I did it for many reasons. One, that I understand what it's like, so I can be compassionate for women who are going through it and passionate at my cancer center. I understand the toll it takes on you and natural healings. And so I managed to arrange to have, I learned TM, Transcendental Meditation. The day after my infusion, I would have acupuncture, someone come to the house. I was lucky, I was very fortunate. I could do that for myself. So when we put the Cancer Wellness Center together, which we'll talk about later, that was really important to me, that those wellness programs were available for everyone. Just because I was privileged enough to get them, I thought it should be available for everybody, the wellness side of it. So I've always believed in mixing the two.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned too, speaking of chemotherapy, when you were getting chemotherapy, you visualized it like liquid gold, healing your cells. So tell us why visualization is so important when we're doing a healing journey, when we're on a healing journey.
It was really important for me, something I was tired of and had a negative connotation into something positive. And I was a big follower of Louise Hay at the time, and You Can Heal Your Life and the mind-body connection. So it's always been interesting to me. And Deepak Chopra, people who I was lucky enough to know at that time, meet at that time. So I just believe that I had to be a part of the healing. I couldn't let other people do it to me. I had to be a part of the healing and help my body heal. So with my mom, incredibly aggressive. I mean, it's come back 3 times, but it's taken its time, thank goodness. So I think that was always just part of who I was. My mother never took an aspirin in her life. She was very natural. She was German. We ate really healthy food always. And she kind of always talked about not using medicine. She didn't even until she died. She really, really used anything. So I think it was my lifestyle as a child.
Okay, so that's fascinating. And even way back in 1992, when you used a naturopath, medical doctor, I forget his name, you mentioned him, and yes, and he asked you, the tumor was in the right breast, and he asked you, do you have a problem with a man? And you said, doesn't everybody? I thought that was hilarious. But so, let's talk about how important it is to heal our relationships, because, women that are on a healing journey, if there's struggle at home, or they have a spouse that's not supportive, or even, family relationships, how important is that to heal when you're going through your own journey?
I think it is important. Unfortunately, like most people, I had family stuff always. And there's, that's part of life, because family represents humanity. And so we learn from our family about humanity and the things that are out there to deal with. My family was supportive. They were great. My mother was in Australia, and my sister was here. My brother was in Australia. So I didn't get to see them all the time. But I kind of needed that time to cocoon myself. It wasn't good to have that energy around me a lot of the time, because I would feel their anxiety, truthfully, and I know a lot of people feel that way, and that's a really hard fine line to walk sometimes. Mm-hmm. But they were good, and
yeah, and it's like you mentioned, it's a fine line, and so you want to, you don't want to hurt their feelings, but if they're not being supportive, then there comes a time when you almost have to be more assertive and draw those boundaries and let people know what your needs are. Sometimes it's hard for us to ask, that we have certain needs, and it's difficult for us to ask for help. Now, you mentioned Louise Hay, and You Can Heal Your Life. I mean, I've read that book, I can't tell you how many times. That was very instrumental in my healing my life, period, but there was kind of an interesting twist, how you ended up with a very special part of Louise Hay. Can you share that with our audience? After she passed away?
Oh, yes. Oh, goodness. Well, yeah, after she passed away, there's a really special thing that I was lucky enough before she passed away to be able to thank her in person.
Oh, you did? Okay, yes.
Yeah, I love her, and she actually brought me out on stage with her, and it was really emotional. But when she passed away, I heard that they were sending out her ashes to certain people to plant around the world. So I wrote to Tracy Reed and asked if I could please have some of her ashes so I could plant them at Gaia, which is my very special retreat in Australia. And we have a hill that overlooks the whole valley, and it's very spiritual. And I was so touched that he actually sent me some ashes, so that she is there with me. And it's a very, very special thing.
Yeah, that's very, very special. Very special. So you've been on several healing journeys, 3 cancer healing journeys, Olivia. How do you think, or do you think that stress played a big part of that? Or what do you think was the trigger for those 3 different instances? I mean, they were all different, but kind of the same at the same time.
If I look back at them, the question, you're having trouble with a man? Well, yes, I was having troubles in my first marriage. We are now great mates and we're friends, but it was a difficult time. The second time, I'm trying to remember now the order, my sister was dying. Extremely difficult. And I also had a car accident at that same time, which kind of hit the area where my first breast cancer had been and stirred things up again. And so I think a combination of the accident, because we know that accidents can trigger things. And then this time when I fractured my sacrum, which was kind of probably an accumulation of all the years of having it. It was in my bones. So this has been an incredible healing time for me, actually, this last one. The third time, okay, you get it? Now I've had some time to rest, and you a big part of that, telling me I needed to slow down. I'm going, no, but I have to do this stuff on. And people expecting me, I go, hey, hang on a minute. This is my life here. I need to really look at it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was forced. I think my body broke something to go see. And, you know, and it's been a wonderful healing, it really has.
Good, good, good. I know.
Because I got off point. I don't know if I answered the question. I hope I did.
I think you did. I think you answered it very well. Now, the importance of community. We know that, you know, in your book, you mentioned that you attended the Hope for Cancer retreat, and then we also attended a smaller, intimate retreat that I hosted in Naples. And you felt very empowered and very encouraged after being surrounded by like-minded women. So how important is it for women to support each other and to be a part of a community like that?
I think it's really important. I want to thank you, because I didn't really kept it to myself. Well, in the beginning, the first time it happened, my career was kind of popular and I didn't feel kind of safe going out and meeting people who would look at me as Olivia Newton-John, not as just a person, is what I felt. I realize now maybe that wouldn't have been the case, but that was my feeling in the beginning. So it was very empowering to hear other women and to see that a lot of strength, and to hear what you were saying of things that you can do, and like slow down. And it was a wonderful experience, and I made some friends. It was very nice, really, really powerful experience for me.
Good, good, good. Yeah, we always encourage women, because so many of them, especially if they're trying to use, you know, natural medicine and perhaps their family is not supportive, they feel like the Lone Ranger. So it's so important for them to feel like there's a community of women that are supporting them and behind them. So tell us about your amazing project in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia, your Olivia Newton-John Center. It was interesting to hear that you didn't want, you felt uncomfortable about having your name on the building.
Yeah, because they approached me about, you know, building a cancer center in Melbourne, Australia, where I grew up. So it was a big honor, but I was very reticent to have my name in a building. I thought, how can I deserve that? I mean, that's something for kind of men in their 80s kind of thing, which leads to another story. But anyway, I went to my mother and asked her what she felt about this. And my father had been, you know, a big part of Melbourne. He was the dean of a college out there, and my brother was a doctor. And I said to them, maybe we should just do Newton-John family, because I don't feel right. And my mother said, my brother didn't want to know about it. He said, no, this is not about me, it's about you. My mother said, if you can help someone, you should do it. So her words of wisdom were the motivation for my last 15 years of raising money for it. And it was really important for me that the word wellness was on the building, because if you see cancer and then you see the word wellness next to it, that's a really positive message for your brain. Like, you can go from cancer to wellness. So now we have the Olivia Newton-John Cancer Wellness Research Center. So we have everything under one roof in a beautiful building that I was part of creating with the architect, Daryl Jackson. I said I wanted lots of light and lots of windows and happy feeling, and it certainly has all of that, because I was a patient last year, so I got to experience it as a patient, and it was amazing. Really was amazing.
Yeah, what a wonderful way to be the undercover boss, right? You were there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had just finished the Cancer Wellness Walk that I do every year in Melbourne, Australia. I had managed to they drove me around because I couldn't walk at that time. I was in a lot of pain. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a sciatic at first. So anyway, I mean, for years I thought it was sciatic. And to be in there, and I didn't want people to know I was there. I didn't want to create a fuss. I didn't want press turning up at the hospital. So they kind of put me in a private room. And once I started to be able to get out of bed and learn how to walk again, I had a walker. I put on a beanie and sunglasses and a mask, and I was able to be totally incognito. It was wonderful. I loved it. I got to meet people. They didn't know who I was.
That's great. That's great. I would have loved to have a picture of that. And
because I don't think you want to see them.
Well, and think about it. Really, Olivia, when you think about it, I mean, you were bedridden, then you got to the point, I mean, where you were using a walker, and now look at you. You know, you're walking, you're driving, you're, back to normal, which is so.
I'm so lucky. Now, I had radiation when I was in Australia. I didn't do any chemo because it's not really recommended for metastases to the bone. And I'm on estrogen therapy. And the combination of that and all the herbs I take, because my husband's a herb medicine physician, amazing. He's just brilliant. He formulated cannabis for me. And I have to say that the cannabis tinctures that he's made me are making incredible difference. For pain, this is really important. I want to tell your listeners and viewers this. I weaned myself off morphine. There'll be a lot of women out there who are morphine at some point, and if they are free of it, and I take the cannabis for pain and for sleep, and they are doing there are so many studies right now, and I believe it's killing the cancer cells too.
Absolutely. Yes, I do want to talk with John about what he's doing. Absolutely. So tell us also about the auction that's coming up in November, something very special, and the auction is going to benefit your wellness center in Australia. So tell us about that.
There's an auction going to happen on November 1st and 2nd. Julian, the company is Julian Auctions. They are wonderful. I decided a while ago, and I've been talking about it forever, but this is the 40th year, the anniversary of Greece. So I decided I'm going to sell my pants and the jacket that I wore in the movie, and the money will go to the hospital. That's how it started. But now it's expanded into a huge auction. I've got things from Xanadu. I've got all the movies I've made. I mean, things I never thought I better keep these things, but somehow, thank goodness, my wonderful assistant Dana kept a lot of things, and I had things in my closet I didn't even realize where they're from. So we're having this big auction, and portion of the proceeds will be going to the Cancer Wellness Center, a major portion, and it's really exciting. It's been a fun project. I'm even selling a car that was my first car when I came to America. It was a little Volkswagen Bug. And a girlfriend of mine has owned it all these years and fixed it up. So we were going to sell the car. So it's
no way. You have your first car. That's amazing. Amazing. All right. And tell us about your retreat in Australia, the Gaia Spa and Retreatment Center.
Yes, the retreatment is, we have a new line of skincare called Retreatment. It's amazing. It's like doing it again at home. Gaia was born out of a dream. Really, I talk about it in my book how this happened, but my friend Greg and I were driving around. We saw this property. We thought it was beautiful. My mother had just passed. I was actually bringing some of her ashes to my farm to plant them under my beautiful old fig tree in the backyard. And woke up in the morning, was making some tea, and I said to Greg, I dreamt about that place so yesterday. And I dreamt we made it into a healing place for our friends to come. And he said, I had the same dream.
Wow.
I called it Buena Vista. I said, I don't like that name. I called it Gaia. And we had this fight over breakfast, the name of this thing that we didn't even have. It was a dream. And it's an amazing story how the dream has become reality. And that's one of the top spas in the world. We've won awards all around the world for our food, for our treatments, for the accommodation. It's beautiful. You've got to come. You've got to come. It's so beautiful. Relaxing, and it's the place I long to be all the time. It's just lovely.
Amazing. And so do you offer what kind of treatments could people get when they go there other than the regular spa retreats?
Well, we've got 30 or 40 girls who do the treatments, so you can do anything from the Ayurvedic stone and the oil to a Swedish massage and acupuncture. We have everything, because this part of Australia is, I don't know where you would like in America, but a lot of the healers are attracted to the world. So we've got the best of the best.
Awesome.
We have our own organic garden. We grow a lot of food.
Amazing.
We're chefs, so it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I call it barefoot Armani. It's casual, but it's elegant. It's like a mixture of both. Bay, which is a gorgeous beach area, and it's near little towns, very quaint Australian towns. It's a little gorgeous place.
Sounds wonderful. We'll coordinate our schedules and organize a retreat to Australia. Yeah. Maybe around the time of the Australian Open.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Good idea. I've been yeah.
So speaking of tennis, your closing remarks in your book made me laugh and brought a tear to my eye at the same time. You know, one of your big dreams was to be able to do horseback riding again and to be able to play tennis. And I'm an avid tennis player as well. And you said, remember when I said that I wanted to ride horses and play tennis again? Now I'd be content with table tennis and my miniature horses. So that was so sweet. I really appreciated that. And, you know, and the fact that you mentioned that this is the first, you're entering your, you know, your seventh decade without a microphone in your hand. So how does that feel?
Actually feels really nice. I had my 70th birthday in the hospital, which was beautiful. I had the visions of going all around the world and having parties and all that stuff. And it was like, no, you are here. And I had it in the wellness center where I had created this special place in the hospital. And we ate food off a table that was made from a tree on my property at the farm up near Gaia. So it was magnificent. My friends were there. My husband was there. My family, some of my nieces and nephews. So it started out like that, and I didn't know what the journey was going to be, but we're nearly, we're 10 months past then, and I haven't had a microphone in my hand since, and I've just been at home with my animals, my husband, my daughter's come to visit a lot, so it's been actually a great lesson for me, and I like it. I've actually learned now I can focus on healing things and you know, things that I really care about, helping get cannabis more available to patients in Australia because it's really difficult still. And we're going to do a study at my hospital on cannabis. So some really wonderful things are happening, and I can focus more on the healing part of my life now.
Wonderful.
Just being. It's really nice.
Isn't that great? Getting up and not having an agenda.
Yes.
That's
Today
wonderful.
like, oh my God, I'm going to do my hair and makeup. This is
yeah. Right. Now, if there were some parting words of encouragement to women in our audience, what would they be?
Yeah, I would say don't listen to statistics and don't read about them, and just be on your own journey and make your own decisions about that. But stay positive, because I really believe your mind has such a huge... I talk to my body and I tell it it's healing. And for me, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't see a fight, because I think a fight sets up an anger in your body that we don't need. So I talk about winning over it, and I ask it to leave, and I visualize the cancer cells being overwhelmed by my body that is so alkaline that it can't sustain it. So, you know, it's things like that rather than fighting it, and you create a battle that's going to go on and on. So that's what I would suggest.
Totally agree. It's about embracing the journey, not about a fight. We want to love the cancer away. Well, thank you so much for your time, Olivia. It's been wonderful. And thank you for all that you do, your words of encouragement and your contribution to the world, and your beautiful center in Australia that someday I will visit.
Yes, please. Thank you, Veronique. Love you, and thank you so much.
Love you too.